pumps. And this is welding and grinding. So what happens with this is that we integrate this. That was specifically for youth. We integrate this program, this culture of maintenance campaign, so to speak, in all of our programs. So we're currently working in the Dominican Republic on another youth training program that will run for hopefully 3 years with 20 youth that go through a 10-month program. And what they do is every Saturday and Sunday, they get their training, and then they work on building WASH into construction projects that the organization has, housing projects and so forth. So they have practical experiences. And the idea is that, of course, as they're getting training, they're able to better maintain these systems that are in their communities, but they're also able to generate income on just marketing their skills. So there's a lot of benefits. And here's just one example of our culture of maintenance training on a non-youth specific project. This is a project in India where we did a solarized borehole and asked the organization specifically to do a week-long training on the culture of maintenance. And by culture, I mean everything that you need to ensure sustained operations. Sustainability doesn't just mean we find a sustainable piece of infrastructure, we put it in there, and then we walk away. Sustainability means it has to be sustained. And that means your culture has to support that. It means everything from how much money are you charging for this? Can you buy the electricity? Can you buy or the spare parts or the repair? Can you clean this place? Can you staff this place? So it's financial, it's administrative, but it's also technical. So a lot of this is showing, teaching people how to understand the basics of the maintenance. Now, I know it's a bit of a strange way to enter into the WASH discussion because it's a few steps ahead. We know that we need WASH infrastructure. We know that it's missing. We know that the 3 billion people that are not going to get to, we're not going to get to by 2030. That is called the infrastructure gap, and we're going to need to get more serious about that. But as we do that, what Water is Right is saying is let's not forget, as we are trying to fill that infrastructure gap, let's not forget the operations and maintenance as a primary piece of this, because after you leave, that's what's going to be left to the community to deal with. And we can either see that as an amazing opportunity for employment. We can see that as an amazing opportunity for training, especially for people who aren't at the expert level, especially for people who are not going to be the contractors or the suppliers of some of these systems, but are rather going to be employed in maintaining them. That's a way of leveraging the WASH infrastructure for local employment. So I'm going to leave you just with that, and I'll just stop the share here. I'm going to leave you with that. Just open it up very, very briefly to see if there's if there are any comments or questions for me now. I'm not sure exactly how to manage that, Olga, if you have the ability to manage that for me.
Thank you, Karun. There is a huge, almost project pitch in the chat. And
Okay.
Victor is writing it, and he's also thanking you for the presentation. It was brilliant, he says. I can read out the speech or maybe give Victor a floor. Maybe he wants
Sure.
to, maybe he wants to, present his idea himself. Yeah, go ahead, Victor.
Oh, thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak to you guys. I'm Victor Mahapasiwit, a program lead from Liberia, from the Action Against Sexual Gender-Based Violence. And over the past time, we've been having series of work, most especially around gender equality, safe drinking water, and the rest of it. And it was sad to know it's been kind of a challenge for us back home, most especially for our rural areas, that you have an underage child or mother finding it difficult to get safe drinking water, walking distance and stuff to fresh water from rivers, creeks, and the rest of it. You visit a different public schools or so, no good latrine facilities, no good sanitation put in place. You have many children getting sick at the end of the day leading to their own death. So I think this is something we can look at in that direction and see how best we can advocate Carol different awareness and see how best we can help, because this is something that really challenging and alarming to our society, because children go to school, don't have safe drinking water. Children go to school, don't have good pit or latrine to use. So it became a serious challenge and causing a lot of sicknesses back home in Liberia, most especially talking about cholera, you just name it, diarrhea. At the end of the day, it leads to death. So I think something spread across Africa, most especially looking at Liberia as a case study. And there are a lot of things work I think I can share after this meeting with you guys. At least you guys can look at and see how best we can do this together. Thank you.
Victor, I just want to respond to absolutely. It's the most tragic that when a parent sends their children to a school that doesn't have a proper pit latrine or doesn't have sanitary latrine, and then it's really impacts young women, especially. There's a lot of issues that present barriers. We've encountered, like you said, cases.
Sorry, I'm not getting you.
Oh, sorry. Am I not being heard?
Okay, I'm hearing you now.
Okay, sorry, Victor. What I was saying is that I sympathize immensely with parents who, and of course also the students who are experiencing this lack of hygienic sanitation facilities as well as water. I think starting in these public spaces is a really good step. We've seen a lot of success at Water is Right in creating water points at schools because they radiate out into the community. Of course, children can take that water home. They are taught a certain kind of sanitation standard at the school that they might carry on as a habit. It combats open defecation. There's a lot of really great benefits in doing that. And the UN Joint Monitoring Program on the SDGs actually monitors the state of water and sanitation in schools. So definitely something to check to make sure that your country is performing. But yes, please do get in touch afterwards, and I'd love to hear more about what we could do. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah.
So I think I'm going to pass the mic here, the hosting on to Zaina to do her presentation. I just need to figure out how to do that. But Zaina, do you have are you going to present verbally or do you have something to share?
Yeah, I have something to share.
Okay.
You can just click on my name on the participant list.
Yeah, I'm doing that. And then I will click on you. And now you're the host.
Yes, perfect. Oh, we have some people asking to get in. Perfect.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
we'll just
okay, so let me share my screen. You can see my presentation now. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you, Karun, for the very inspiring presentation and talk. So for me, I will be talking about a different aspect of WASH. I will be talking about children and youth education, about two experiences specifically to show how children and youth can impact the behaviors of communities, of course, towards water management. So I will start with the children one. It's a very nice experience. Just let me, yes. Okay, so in this experience, actually, it was a summer camp that I carried out, a 6-week summer camp, and it was like a couple of years ago, and it was specifically for local kids in a very heritage and local area in Cairo, in Egypt. It's a low-income area, and the challenge was that after COVID, it was very, very bad, the situation with the income and their nutrition, and we wanted to provide them like some good behaviors regarding their environment, and also there was a larger project that was going on that I will talk about later. So in that workshop or in that summer camp, I started introducing a very specific concept that is the water footprint. And usually people who are not working in the water sector have no idea what this is about. But basically water footprint is about how much water does a product or a service consume from the moment it is produced. Like, for example, a piece of chocolate. How many water do you need since the agriculture process in the very beginning till the processing and the packaging until you have this piece of chocolate in your hand? So, for example, that piece of chocolate would have a water footprint of 2,000 liters. So we started explaining this simple concept to the kids. And then we were surprised by how much they were inspired by the concept. And they were competing and trying to reduce their water consumption every day. For example, they tried to eat beans instead of meat because it has much less water footprint. They tried to lower their shower consumption and their shower time. So we were impressed by their actions and their behaviors. And then also we were impressed by their parents coming up to tell us how they have noticed their kids' behavior change. So they told us that kids started to get more selective about their food choices. They started to become more focusing on nutrients and also food that consumes less water. And also their parents also talked about the learning from them and adopting their behavior. So as you can see here in the photos, we were talking about the water cycle, and we were making 3D models about the water cycle. In the photo to the right, you can see here a very simple experiment that we were trying to show them how to filter water. So they can see the process and they can feel it and they can know that they are not having water. They can see the process of filtration that happens before they receive the clean water. So later on, this camp was actually a part of a larger project that was aiming to save the heritage buildings in this area from the rising groundwater. So this groundwater was damaging the infrastructure for the buildings, and we wanted to provide some solutions to save these buildings without having to waste the groundwater by pumping it through the sewage. So we wanted to treat the water and help green the community and provide some water for growing their own crops and providing some empowerment to them. They are growing their own crops. They are having food resources. They are also growing their income and so on. You can also see here some activities on sustainability, and you can see also an activity about the water cycle that students or kids started to replicate at their own homes with their own parents, spreading the awareness and trying to be proud of what they learned. So later on, we started to engage the kids and explain to them the situation about the buildings and the water and how we can use this water. So we asked them to provide us with their visions, and these kids were from 7 to 13 years old. And some of them the younger ones started drawing some sketches showing, as you can see, flowers on the building facades and greening their communities. Some of them started learning from the experiments we provided them. For example, how to self-irrigate their plants so they are not dying if we leave them in the heat for long. Some of them, the older kids specifically, started to do a model for the area, for the neighborhood, and starting, as you can see, to put green areas and paint the streets green. And then later on, they developed this model to have the facades also green and plant more trees and so on. So we called that the Urban Green Dream, where they can use their vision and dreams to use this excess water to green their communities, to provide more life to their communities. So for this experience, it was amazing to see these kids, these little kids, having so much power to their communities, because later on the process or the project continued and the community started working to develop the ideas of the kids on how to use this groundwater, to develop the community and to provide green spaces within their neighborhoods. So it was a very empowering experience for kids, for engaging kids into the water management efforts throughout their own communities. So this was for the first experience that I would love to share. And for the second one, it was mostly with young people. As I will share here, it's more advanced. It's an educational experience where we, as I mentioned previously, I'm teaching architecture and urban design. So in this experiment, we were trying to integrate water management into the architecture and urban design curriculum. So it was for the first time to be like having a separate course on water management solutions in urban areas. And we started working with our architecture students. I started asking them to develop some ideas about water conservation, technologies that we can use for coastal areas, for example, for wastewater treatment, for rainwater catchment, how can we manage urban flooding? And they started providing and learning about the many solutions and technologies they have. And as you can see here, it's very conceptual. They are just categorizing the solution. And then what was very inspiring was the final project. Because in the final project for the course, we started, sorry for this. We started working on a very specific project on a residential area in my country in Egypt. So they selected a residential compound that was actually part of a larger project aiming to provide affordable housing solutions for young Egyptians. And this compound, of course, because it's affordable, it's like low middle income compound, it doesn't provide many green areas for the compound, for the residents. And because Egypt is a very water scarce country, so it's not easy to provide much water for these areas to be green, for providing the landscape, for providing a better quality of life for the residents. And also it is expected that the water treatment plants would not be sufficient throughout the years for this compound when everyone is there and having their own units because of the growing water scarcity and the increasing population in Egypt. So what we worked on, my students started studying concepts like water sensitive urban design, integrated urban water management. And as you can see, they started analyzing the compound and analyzing the water situation in Egypt. And then they developed some strategies. As you can see here, they started providing solutions that can be implemented into the urban design of the buildings and the community. So, for example, they started mentioning that we can separate the gray water from the black water in the buildings, and then we can use constructed wetlands. It's a form of treating gray water by using some plants and native species of plants. So they started integrating this into the landscape, as you can see in their vision. And then by that, they provided landscape for the residents. And also they started calculating how many potential residents will be in the compound and how many green spaces we can provide by this treated gray water. And also they started calculating and designing where to put the constructed wetlands and also how many green roofs can we provide. They started also providing permeable pavements to allow for any runoff water to be infiltrated into the underground. So their vision was like transforming this very normal residential compound into a very natural one that is keeping the water cycle and conserving the water resources and also providing a much better quality of life for the residents. So it was a very, for me, it was a very inspiring experience because it was the first time to see architecture and urban design students that are undergraduate providing this technical solution for water. So I think that will like provide a foundation for future collaborations, for example, for architecture and urban design schools with water engineers. And then we can find some solutions that are city-based for our communities and for all the urban areas we live in to provide water management solutions. So these were the two experiences I wanted to share, and I'm happy to know your questions and comments and to discuss these solutions. Thank you. I will have like a minute or something to see if someone has any questions before I pass it to the next speaker.
Can I ask you, Zaina, just as people are are perhaps gathering their thoughts, how many young people were involved in this? I'm assuming this was a course.
Yeah, the university course you mean, right?
Yeah, in designing and going through the process of this conceptualizing the the use of water here in the neighborhood. What was how many people can participate in that at once?
It was actually a team. The whole course was consisting of 8 students, and this team was like 3 students. So they were doing all the analysis together and all the visiting and so on.
Wonderful. And Zaina, that was absolutely fascinating. And to me, it just shows how you can, your range from children, engaging children and in a simple, playful way, all the way to engaging young people who are going to be professionals and really affecting things. I think it's important to say that as the 8 students might go on to really changing the thinking, and it's important to motivate people at a young age to expand their toolkit, make sure that they've got these new techniques and ideas, so that when they get to positions of authority, they're gonna be the new thought leaders.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Karun, for your feedback. So I don't think, yeah.
I'm not sure if we've got any other questions, but I think what we'll do is we'll have a brief period at the end for people to come in, and perhaps we can move on and pass the mic to Sophia.
Yes, sure. Let's do that. Hi, everyone. For those who are joining, we are doing presentations, and if you have questions regarding the presentation, you can write down on the chat, but we will have time at the end. And I will continue these wonderful discussions, sharing a bit of perspectives that I bring to this panel. My name is Sophia, and I'm speaking from Brazil. I'm currently the youth delegate for the Americas on behalf of the World Water Council, and I'm also a PhD researcher in analysis and modeling of environmental systems. So first, I will bring a perspective on youth engagement and how can we improve that in the water and sanitation sector. And this was a process conducted by me and the other 3 delegates. And we conducted a global synthesis of what youth want in water, both via a survey and also analyzing youth declarations. And we got many data to analyze. And based on the survey results, we arrived at a definition: what does meaningful youth engagement? And it is a process that must be institutionalized, considering at least inclusive participation at all levels, opportunities to collaborate and to build capacity to be able to empower other young people and to be more effective. And third, respect and recognition as equal stakeholders. And already as a synthesis, what youth want in the water and sanitation sectors: we want meaningful engagement and participation in water governance. We also want to achieve universal access to water and sanitation. We see that there's a need for cross-sector dialogues to leverage knowledge and innovation to solve water challenges, enhance education and training, something that our colleagues are doing very well, mobilize resources to vulnerable locations, balance human needs with nature, and also to adapt solutions to the needs of the regional nuances. So this was a perspective that we had on the youth globally. And now when I will talk a bit more about environmental systems, and when we talk about the landscape, and this is a picture of the city I live, which is Belo Horizonte in southeast Brazil. And when we talk about a landscape, we talk about the multiple functionalities of this landscape. Water and sanitation is part of the functional landscape we are aiming to, but also scenic beauty, cultural identity, environmental conservation, as well as mobility, tourism, housing. So how can we achieve all of those aspects in a landscape we live? And when I bring the perspective of Belo Horizonte, when talking about water and sanitation, when you look at the numbers, it seems like we are getting there on the access to universal water and sanitation services, but there are some nuances considering urban infrastructure and also the drainage and waste problems that affect the supply to water and sanitation. So we are planned a city, but is this really the city we deserve to live in? So now I invite you all to imagine of each of your landscapes that you live. How is this landscape characterized? What is the present situation and the problems you face on that? And what is the solutions for a more sustainable future? And bringing the perspective of Belo Horizonte, we have problems regarding floods, and these effects are not only housing, but also water and sanitation supply. And here I bring 5 points for we to imagine the landscape we live, and in my case, it's more urban centered. We must imagine these joint solutions. So think about not only environmental but socioeconomic, how those parts integrate in our landscape. Preparedness and resilience. We must think about a just and peaceful transition. We must include, so how we'll think of the marginalized groups, but as well as children and youth, how are they included in managing the landscapes they live, and to continue to inform, educate, and research. And I bring some examples that took place here in Belo Horizonte. First is the Climate Turnaround. It's a festival that civil society organized to focus on local policies, and they invited people to collaborate on the climate citizenship that they disseminated, especially in the municipal elections period. And people are asking for spaces to exchange knowledge, keep water bodies in the natural course, plant trees, universalize sanitation, reduce risk areas, and drinking fountains around the city. These are just a couple of examples. And also this very cool initiative, which is called the Jaguar Festival, because there is a water course called Jaguar in the Portuguese language. And this exists since 2017, and it's a collaboration between architecture students and the community. So this aims to transform degraded spaces in recreation and cultural areas. So a free place for imagination of this landscape they live. And this year they prepared a festival with 3 interventions. The first of them was a waterfall viewpoint. So they prepared a place. They re-prepared a place where people used to throw trash, but to appreciate the landscape they live. And second one was the sports field, so they construct that with the community. And the third one was a square, and they thought about the kids living in their area. They wanted to transform those kids in preservation agents, and also these squares to connect with the riparian park. So yeah, these last provocations for us to reimagine the landscape we live to achieve the goals we want regarding as youth and children regarding water and sanitation. Maybe we can move on to the next presentation and have questions and answers at the end, just because of the timing. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Sophia, I think it would be great. Well, first of all, thank you so much. That was fascinating, and I really commend you. And I think it's important to realize there's so many different contexts of water and sanitation and hygiene, from the protection of the source to the appreciation to education to the impacts to supplying clean water. I mean, it goes on and on, but I think this just demonstrates the range that this topic has. We do have people that want to bring in their own experiences. I think we should do that at the end and let's just quickly move on to Maggie. And then I think we have a few folks who might want to speak to their experiences, and we'll do that right at the end, I think. So if you permit to just move the host over to Maggie, and we can do the final presentation and get to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. I am Maggie Marcu. I am from Albania. I'm here representing the World Youth Parliament for Water. It was very nice and very lovely to hear from my colleagues before speaking on WASH. And I'm also here to share with you another side of ways on how we can engage youth, how we can try to push our way forward to be part of these decisions, to be part of and have a say on what the future of WASH will be like in different areas and sectors. First, I want to say that I think we all know that when it comes to the water sector, the young people are not that present, and it's also known as an aging sector, a sector that lacks innovations, and it's still considered as old compared to the other sectors. For example, the energy sector, which is more liked, which people tend to go more for. And there are a lot of factors that go through this, and it's because mostly that you don't see a kind of representation. You don't see young people making a change or leading into these spaces. And maybe that also comes from, for women, examples in leadership roles as well. But to change this, of course, there are a lot of attempts, a lot of organizations, youth organizations, a lot of initiatives that are trying to make a change and trying to impact the sector for better. And I'm seeing a kind of unity happening, which before was lacking, and it's a lot more present because thanks to the digital age where people can gather like this today to speak and discuss together through the Zoom platforms and other platforms that are available to us. So at the World Youth Parliament for Water, we have tried to be part of different spaces and make sure we are saying something, make sure that we are trying to impact what is currently being decided. And I'm wondering if you guys are seeing this presentation at the moment.
Yes.
Perfect. Yep, so what I would like to share with you is some of the few initiatives that we have tried to undertake during global stages when important decisions and important things were being undertaken, and how to make sure that young people were also being involved during these discussions. I want to share with you during this year in May, during the World Water Forum. It was the 10th World Water Forum that was happening in Indonesia, in Bali. And sorry, I have a cold. So during this forum, the World Youth Parliament for Water got together to host their General Assembly, which happens once every 3 years. And the General Assembly is set to happen before the World Water Forum. And it's a set of meetings, a set of discussions, workshops, trainings, and ways on how to engage with each other and amplify your voice. One of the initiatives we undertaken during the period that we were attending the World Water Forum is how to make sure that we are also being considered. One thing that was different from this forum was that now you would be able to see more young people being present in these stages. You would see people taking part in high-level meetings, in political processes, and other big gatherings, which was quite meaningful, and we were very happy to make sure that the voice of youth was present, it was authentic, it was raw, and it was different. We made sure that the young people that were speaking in the stages were not being repetitive, we're not being diplomatical, because this is not what we are about. And luckily, we do have the ability to actually uh, speak our mind and not really have a consequence for that. And this is what we did during the World Water Forum. During this time, we made sure to also prepare the youth statement for the 10th World Water Forum. You can also find this online if you search for the statement. And it's a statement that is based on thematics. We also spoke about water weaponization, WASH, and so much more, and shared a synthesized version of our demands for this forum. Here, okay, you can see some pictures of us that we were during the time. It was truly special to see how this gathering made sure that we felt so united together. We were very committed to try and make sure that we are doing a change, we are impacting how these discussions were going. It was very special, and hoping to see more things like this. I think for me, this was um, quite groundbreaking when it comes to youth in water, because it was different, it was innovative, and it was impactful. Another one that I would like to share with you is that a group of us had the chance um, to contribute to the Global Commission on the Economics of Water report, The Economics of Water. Feel free to check this report. It actually launched last week. Here you have the QR code and also the website URL. I think we are seeing also innovative ways from different organizations on how they try to engage young people in water discussions, in water decision, and so much more. And one of them is this one. So the Global Commission, which is an entity hosted by the OECD, made sure that they had a youth expert group, which I was also part of. And we had the chance to go over through the report, add our ideas, and share what recommendations. And we finally have something in the end that also includes our voice. There is also a youth preface at the beginning. You will be able to see an extended version and synthesized version of this as well. A recent work as well that we did was we created a youth position paper based on regions. So it was through continents. I had the opportunity to lead the Europe one, and the International Network of Basin Organizations hosted their General Assembly this year. And we had the chance to work on this. And before that, we also took part in online workshops to be prepared and make sure how we can give our best, and make sure that what we are saying is relevant, make sure that we are putting in there what could benefit generations to come. So we prepared this document. It's not public yet. I believe it might become public sometime soon. So for now, this is all I can show. Next one, it was last week. So we worked on the Youth Declaration on Water Scarcity and Agriculture. So we took part in the Rome Water Dialogue that happened last week. It's an event, a high-level event that happens every week. And this year, they made sure to accept the new declaration on Rome Water Dialogue and also have discussion on WASAG framework, which is the Water Scarcity and Agriculture Framework, which is going to be adopted for in the beginning of the next year for 2035, 2031. And during this process, we made sure to have some online consultations we organized together with the World Food Forum Secretariat, and a survey as well, where we made sure for the people can give their own inputs, and they will be collected and synthesized in the declaration version. And as well as we had an on-ground event during the World Food Forum, which was dedicated to the rainwater dialogue. So this all efforts made sure that we can create a declaration. This also will be published pretty soon by the World Food Forum Secretariat. So I encourage you to keep an eye out. Here is also us, where we made sure to also speak on these demands as youth representatives. And we had the opportunity to have the contribution from the Youth Assembly of the World Food Forum, the World Youth Parliament for Water, and the Water Youth Network. So this is all for my side, and I hope this have been maybe new information where you can also try to replicate in other things to make sure that how to find ways on how you can make your voice heard and make sure that you are part of these processes in one way or another, because these things cannot be left ignored. And these people that are taking this decision will have to check them out. We'll have to listen to you. And as often as we do this, we make sure that the people that are taking charge will end up listening, or maybe in the future, it will be us who will be taking charge when it comes to the water decisions. Thank you so much.
Well, Maggie, that's incredible work that you're doing, and I must say, at such a high level, it's very, very good to continue to see the spread of the involvement of young people in the international policy dialogue. For those who might find that fairly abstract, I do want to bind that work into some concrete realities. What we can think is what we can do. So when the policymakers sit down to come up with their plans and ideas, they have to reach to a toolbox. So that toolbox is often shaped by which tools are at the front of the toolbox, at the top of the toolbox, and which ones are behind and forgotten. And I think in order for us to keep this at the top of people's minds, we reinforce the position of the intergenerational unfairness of passing on these problems to future generations. And so keeping the tools that are needed right up front in their minds is important. And it's reinforcing this that Maggie is doing over and over again in all of these international forums. And so while it might not be immediately obvious how this is going to bring water to the world or sanitation, it is incredibly important that the pressure be maintained, and that the solutions that the youth and children are impacted by most are placed front of mind in the minds of the policymakers. So thank you so much for that wonderful work you're doing and presentation.
Thank you so much, Karun. Just to address one question from Olga, there is no mention of an urban angle on the WASAG framework, as it is about the water scarcity in agriculture. And but I think we're still working on this declaration, and I hope that this kind of ideas and thoughts that we have feed into the declaration that the advisory board is working on.
Thank you so much for responding to this. In fact, I was about just to propose this as a follow-up from my side. Yet, indeed, not necessarily need to be urban issues need to be mentioned everywhere in every declaration. But that's why we have this global declaration, where we can take this particularly urban problematic and look at all of the SDGs through the urban lens. So SDG 6 in this particular sense, water and sanitation and agriculture and food and water scarcity, that all can be looked at this through the declaration. That's why I put the link in the chat for those who are here on the call and you want to input in the next coming global declaration, which will be adopted at the World Urban Forum in November. Please go to this forum and submit your input. Every voice counts, and we update it almost daily. So thank you for the floor. Thank you, Maggie, for responding to my question as well and allowing me to talk about this.
Thank you for sharing the link. I will make sure to check out, and especially the participants here, I think they can benefit from this. And I think it's very something that makes you feel a lot of gratitude when you are part of this and you have contributed to these things. So I really encourage everybody to also contribute as well.
So I think, Zaina, if you're willing to moderate some comments, I know we have one person who wanted to speak, and I think Zaina had volunteered to host this part of the session.
Yes, sure. I'm trying to find out who.
It was Doris. Doris.
Doris. Yeah. Doris. Yeah, we were very interested in your comment, Doris. So if you are here now, please, we invite you to speak and to tell us more about your perspective and experience.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to speak to this issue from an architectural perspective. I'm architectural student. I'm currently in Rwanda. So, and I'm also the founder of LISAT, Librarians Encouraging Students in Science and Technology. We are set up to inspire students to take on careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we are also prioritizing water engineering and other parts of sanitation and construction. So in regards to the water preservation from an architectural point of view, it was just 2 days ago we were discussing this in class, so I decided so I can bring our ideas here. So we prospective architects are talking about ways to design system for water harvesting. So instead of we want to be proactive, instead of after the construction to talk about how we can bring system into place, we should start to design those systems into the architectural design. So like the filtration system, the distribution networks for water, and also the storage system, you see. So we found out that most of the existing structures, they are just built with all thinking about how we can use that means to harvest rainwater, which is the natural water. Sometimes because of climate change, sometimes it rains even when it's not the time to rain. You know, there are a lot of change in the weather. So we are also talking about how can we employ this system to existing structures. So I believe with those techniques and those new innovations and new technologies, we can use a way as architects to design the structures in ways that we can preserve more water when there's a shortages of water for the people or the community. So that's what I just wanted to bring to your attention. And I'm so happy to be a part of this forum.
Thank you so much, Doris, for your insights. We are really happy to have you here. And it's very impressive to see you as an architecture student coming here into our webinar and to also discuss and provide that bridge between the architecture practices and the water management practices, which are usually like everyone is working in silos. So it's very important, as you mentioned, to consider the water cycle when we are designing buildings and communities, because when we are designing a city or a building, we are taking a space from nature. So we are interrupting the water cycle, the natural water cycle. So we need at least to consider some parts of this cycle to renovate and to re-establish the flow of the cycle. Like you mentioned, by using some technologies, some practices, and even some simple things such as using vegetation to allow water to go through the soil and to the underground instead of pavements that doesn't allow that. Such simple practices. So I believe I mean, for me, I'm very happy to see architects and urban designers are finally getting into the field, are finally getting to know their role in water management. So I can see that in the future that will be more enhanced, and we will have more collaboration between the two sectors. And we will have even young people thinking about these global challenges in their works and in their studies. So I'm very happy to have you and for your comments. Thank you so much, Doris.
Thank you for having.
Thank you, Doris. Karun, if you would like to add something.
I would just say I've had some experience with buildings in Haiti that they were located in a mountainous region. They have a very steep terrain and have, even though it rains, have a hard time finding water at shallow depths. And so every single building in this particular institution that I was in had been designed with rainwater storage in mind. And even like very, very large buildings would have cisterns that were basically built into the basements of these buildings. So you would have possibly millions of liters of storage in every one of the residential and teaching buildings. And so it was a sort of a sponge kind of concept that is, if it rains, it would fill up. And of course, you do have to treat that water when you're using it. But I thought, well, that was a really interesting and innovative way of just integrating, the major function of water storage into the architecture of the buildings themselves. So I think there's so much to do both in water harvesting and as well as processing gray water and designing buildings to help in so many ways with diverting stormwater, as we saw with Sophia's example there with Belo Horizonte flooding. There's so much more flooding these days with climate change. The resilience is such an important thing to think about as well in architecture. I'm just wondering, we are quite at the end of our time, and Zaina, if you would have time to maybe share this declaration that we're working on, is that the same thing that Olga has shared, or is it different?
Yes, we can share actually another version that is very simple, and you can directly add your declaration regarding water and WASH. So let me share it.
And while she's sharing it, so we've been doing these declarations, which are basically a declaration of action. So you can write there. Oh, look, there we go. You've got the QR code, so you can get your phone out. And do that. And Zaina, let us know a little bit about where that information goes and what we're doing with it.
Yeah. So for the declaration, we are collecting the young people voices from around the world about urban issues, and as Olga mentioned in the chat, different SDGs and how governments and official institutions and also the UN, United Nations, can provide more facilitation to young people to be included and to be considered into the future actions towards sustainable cities. So, for example, here we are focusing on WASH, on how to include young people into water actions and water management in urban areas. So that's why we created a QR code for a form where you can directly add your declaration. You can also go to the link shared by Olga in the chat, and you can find the whole SDGs, and you can select which SDGs do you consider the most important, why do you consider them the most important, and what do you think that local governments, for example, should do towards this? What do you think the United Nations should do? And all of this will be collected and will be included in the declaration that will be announced in the next World Urban Forum in the Children and Youth Assembly. So it happens like it's a very big event, and all your voices that you include here will be included in the declaration. So I really invite you all to be part of this, because it's like important into shaping our future that we are all experts in our own topics, and we can definitely provide input for this.
Absolutely. We had one question, sort of a question comment from a gentleman, Jean-Pierre. I'm not sure if he's still there, but the question is Jean-Pierre still around? And if not, let's just see. Yes, he is. Is he? Maybe he can ask his question about.
Yes, he is.
Okay. Can he be given the floor if he's willing to ask the question? It's well, just as he gets, I'm not sure if he's. Oh, is he coming? It was the thank you so much for the presentation. It was he's excited to participate, and from the country of the Democratic Republic of Congo, specifically in the city of Goma, which is on the border of Rwanda, from the organization called Build Youth Mind. And of course, if Jean-Pierre wants to jump in at any point, very well can do that. And he was talking about, for those of us who work in conflict zones with a massive population displacement, we're faced with great difficulties in this direction. And so I'm wondering if anybody else here has worked with people who are in a situation of displacement, perhaps in refugee camps. If anybody has some ideas for that specifically. Well, I'm certainly eager to hear from Jean-Pierre if he's willing to share with us. But in the meantime, as he's doing that, if there's anybody else that can answer his question, I'd certainly be happy to hear that. No, none of the speakers. So again, apologies to Jean-Pierre if there's technical difficulties. Absolutely, we've during the COVID pandemic, we had a youth-specific water, sanitation, and hygiene program for the population in Mandera. So Mandera is on the border of Ethiopia, I think, in Sudan. It's in a corner of Kenya that does have a lot of refugees. There's I think one of the larger refugee camps there, and the concern at the time was the spread of the coronavirus. And so we actually engaged a youth organization. Let me just turn my camera on. We engaged a youth organization there who provided public health education workers. So they were trained up in public health education through the state's outreach program. And they stationed themselves in bus stops, in all kinds of areas where there was high traffic kind of coming in and out, and basically did education on hand hygiene, on airborne transmission. And so, in terms of hygiene, it was quite a successful and fairly simple to implement program with an existing youth group. Of course, it required a little bit of funding. But in that emergency situation, that was sort of one of my experiences, was that youth groups themselves can be the agents of delivering some services in areas and times of crisis where it might be more difficult for a traditional agencies to actually intervene in that situation. So a colleague of mine, Doug, developed this idea of youth emergency response. And so we've done a very similar thing in populations in Mathare and in Kenya as well, and they've been quite successful. So I think that there's definitely ways for young people, because they're leaders within their communities. They organize groups for them to be directly engaged in delivering services, whether it be fixing riparian zones, whether it's doing education or whether it's providing sanitation services directly, like running sanitation blocks or delivering water. Oftentimes it's young people who are doing that work anyway, and engaging youth groups that are on the ground, that are organized and have the trust of the community is often a really great way of addressing these issues. So youth can be part of the voice and the solution on the policy side, but they can also help operationalize and implement some of these policies. So I would encourage Mr. Jean-Pierre in his mission there to get young people involved in water and sanitation hygiene projects and really try to get them engaged in delivering services. I think we've come to the end of our time, though. If there are any other questions, I think possibly the best thing to do is to reach out to us directly. I can put my email there in the at the last step. And I think for those who want certificates, Olga will prepare them. If you send an email or send your email in the chat right now, Olga would be happy to receive that. And Olga's our staff person at UN Habitat. She will be able to prepare that certificate if you need one, and I can sign it on behalf of the Water is Right Foundation. And I think we've come to the end. I'm not sure if there's anything else that we still need to do there, Zaina. But I would like to thank our presenters, Sophia, Maggie, and Zaina. I'd like to thank our host, UN Habitat. And I think with that, we will formally close the session and thank everyone for participating.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karun, and everyone. And thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'll just put my email in here. All right, everyone, take care. Have a wonderful rest of your evening or morning.
Goodbye.